Do not watch this. There is content that's not for everybody on this channel. There's nothing to really take away from this. I got a comment. I was excited about it and wanted to try to explain something. And I think I maybe just too distracted, or maybe even I smoked too much, and it just so I just please, I couldn't even do this with text on the screen. Uh, do not continue, and certainly don't hold me accountable to for having wasted your time.
Really, I'm only publishing it because I just think it should be a part of the story of the career. This was my first attempt at, and I think that might be throwing me off too. Is that I keep switching between feeling like I'm addressing an individual, or addressing the people that are just interested in the response, and then just doing the idea. And also, no, I think I just haven't eaten. I think what threw me off, I think you could call it just I was nervous. I think that I've never really made a video where I was responding to a comment. And so I think there are mechanisms running that don't normally run when I talk about these things. Mechanisms that were more focused on either presentation or just on the audience, or on keeping it concise. Maybe those mechanisms running extra hard. Not that those mechanisms are very strong, but they were running, and so I ended up just being sort of distracted by that, or not, my ideas not being able to, Jesus Christ. Forgive me.
Fortuner 123, you've got me on cloud 9. Not only did I buy some fly paper, that's a lot of flies, so they're not in my face as I'm trying to work, so that's neat. Not only did that happen, not only did my octogenarian sexual solicitor paid me another visit today. And then when I ignored him the first times he said hi when he walked by the vehicle. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. Because I didn't really want to make the video public. Cause I didn't want to, put his face on the internet. Just an old man looking for some love. But basically, yesterday, he long story short, comes up to the vehicle, is chatting with me. Asked me questions I didn't understand why he was asking me them. Are you alone? I thought he worked for the parking lot that I'm in now. So he asked me how many nights I'm staying. I'm not gonna do a long story short. This is just gonna be the story. How many nights are you staying here? And then do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Asked me all these questions. And then he grabs at my crotch. And because he was on ground level and I was up in the vehicle, he just kind of reached out. I moved away, but I can still feel it. He still got a little of the ZZ. And he's, he makes me his pitch. I'm going, no. He's going, I was polite about it. No, Juan, no. But he said he's good at it, that I'd really like it and stuff. And anyway, so today, he says hello to me a couple times. I ignore him, hoping he doesn't see that I see him. And then one time, I know that, so I say hello. He starts to come. I go, no venga. He says, no, you don't want it? You don't want this? No. Stop. So, anyway, and then, what? I look at my comments, and someone has made the mistake of asking me to explain something. Someone has asked for more. So, color me pink. So, Okay, so the comment was on my video, Naive Realism. And, alright, so I didn't want to publish the video by itself, but for the real ones, here's just a little clip of, and then I can just edit it out on YouTube, right? If I actually get followers. There's a lot of stuff I got to edit out if I actually get followers. Um, anyway, so Naive Real, oh, right, so you can watch that real quick. Okay. No, no quiero.
¿Lo ibas a pasar bien?
¿Cómo?
¿Que lo ibas a pasar bien?
Ah, no, 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 no quiero, no quiero.
A ver, que te iba a dar gusto.
No, 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 ok, no, 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 me deje, por favor, estoy trabajando.
Ah, bueno, te dejo. Bueno.
Okay, gracias.
So,
Naive
Okay, ciao,
Realism.
one.
That's the video that the comment was under. Can you explain it, please? Now, Fortuner 123, did you mean like, can I explain some of the stuff that the author David McRaney in his book How Minds Change? Is that what you're asking me? If so, let me know below. That's not the question I will be answering, or responding to, I should say. But if you're asking me, can you explain more what naive realism is? I'm going to respond to that. I'm not even going to really give it an answer. And maybe one will come to me. But it's such a fun thing to think about defining, and also naive realism. So, okay, so you guys don't have to watch the video. It's only 3 minutes, 22 seconds, and basically it's just our sort of acknowledging that this term naive realism exists, and therefore our censor myth that we had come up with like the day before is unnecessary, or that term is unnecessary because it's basically naive realism. And then I did tweak his definition a little bit so as not to be misleading in the way that it might feed more into our illusions, our mental illusions about ourselves. So the big mental illusion about the self that he's actually defining is naive realism. But then in his definition, he sort of, I feel like, feeds the illusion of us sort of existing as a central reasonable figure. All right, so go watch that if you want to see more of that, if you want to see what I'm talking about there. But here I'm going to read his definition of naive realism. In psychology, there's a term for this cognitive blind spot for when your disambiguations feel undeniably true. If you want me to explain disambiguations, just when the little choices that your interpretive mechanisms sort of make, you never have like the whole picture. None of your mechanisms do. So sometimes they have to, so they always, but sometimes they have like two options, and they have to, so it's an ambiguous possible interpretation. They have to make a choice, and they go with one option or the other. That's called a disambiguation. But that's, you have to watch the Crocs and Socks video or read the book to get that. All right, so we're on page 80. It's called naive realism when your disambiguations feel undeniably true. It's called naive realism, and it's the belief that you perceive the world as it truly is, free from assumption, interpretation, bias, or the limitations of your senses. But we can, even in the previous video, we put a period after it truly is, because that's what it is. It's called naive realism, and it's the belief that you perceive the world as it truly is. That's what naive realism is. And it's so fundamental. Let me try not to get lost in words and let the words lead me to things that I wasn't actually going to say or don't even maybe consider true. All right. So realism, we'll say, is the idea that you perceive the world as it is, that reality exists here. It's acquired from there, and it's brought into here. And it's naive because, like, get real, bro. Like, your brain isn't some kind of camera that doesn't even exist, that's able to just capture reality and all of its meaning. So because that capturing process isn't happening that way, well, so what is happening? Forget that I just said because. What is actually happening? Well, what is happening is that photons and other stimuli from here are basically hitting us, we'll say, and triggering a representation in here. How that representation happens is not, I don't think, what I want to talk about in this video. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I got so excited to have that comment. I didn't prepare. Not that I ever do. The whole point of this channel is to try to disabuse the viewers of the naive realism, really. Of the idea that we see the world as it truly is, that we reflect back the world. Imagine you are, get rid of the body, the brain, all that. Imagine you're just you, this soul. The version of the way that you'll be in heaven. Reality exists, and you're just a part of it, and you just know it. If something is blue, you know it's blue. You see it as blue. There is no that soul thing. We're not going to talk about heaven, but that soul thing, it doesn't exist. It has no eyes. It has no visual cortex. So instead, all right, now let's bring in the body and the brain. Because I would get how you could be a naive realist with this magical soul thing. The thing is, that's not how it works. So we've got this brain. And the brain sees the world like a Roomba does, except with just a lot more. So a Roomba, if you imagine its image of the world, first of all, it's not going to be like super 3D. There's not going to be much concept of things, for instance, existing. There's also not, so there's not going to be that depth axis. Well, there is actually, because there's sort of a distance thing, isn't there? And then actually, I don't know how, I've never had a Roomba, and I have no idea how it works. I was originally imagining like a robot that's programmed just to open and close doors. And so they just see either there's an obstacle in front of me or there isn't. And then like, either there's a doorknob or there isn't. And the image of a doorknob is going to trigger. I don't think I'm ready to respond to comments. I don't want to waste any more of your time right now. So, to finish the robot thing and then let you go. Just the images and the reality that exists in your mind is a representation of the exterior reality. It is not the exterior reality, nor a perfect representation of the exterior reality. This whole channel and what cognitive psychology is about, I mean, specifically when evolutionary cognitive psychology is about, is looking at what are the mechanisms by which that representation is created, not sort of the actual chemical mechanisms, but sort of what are the rules of that, how good is that, maybe so for instance, one thing that we know is that we are only going to construct based on photons within the visual wavelength. Um, so X-rays X-rays are a part of the real reality, do not affect the reality that is in here, or the reconstruction that is in here. Those are not part of the pieces used for the reconstruction. So maybe you can think of it that way. Okay, so imagine everything in the mind is plastic. And out in the real world, there are real materials. There are rocks or quartz, whatever, concrete, and there are trees and leaves, and then we have like a sort of a plastic model in the brain. Let's say maybe there are some other materials. There's plastic. There's a little bit of clay, and I don't know, some other materials. But we don't have all. But it's like some artificial or synthetic materials, maybe not clay, but Play-Doh. And then we try to recreate what's outside. And the question of evolutionary cognitive psychology would be, when we interact with concrete, when we see concrete, what is the substance that we use in the brain, and how did we decide? Fuck no. I think this is kind of the reason I also wanted to make this video, because I don't know how do you explain naive realism, especially because naive realism, it's very easy to explain, but if that's what we were getting caught up on, Unfortuner 1, 2, 3, then that's like super telling of an obstacle that you'll want to overcome. The biggest block to not being able to understand naive realism is being committed to naive realism. So if you take it for granted, and if you're having trouble with other mechanisms overriding this, if you're taking it for granted that what I perceive and my is reality, and my judgments are based on that reality, rather than all the micro assumptions, the disambiguations, the interpretive mechanisms and how they interact, and sometimes we call bad interactions biases, and even just the limitations of your senses. If you're committed to naive realism, you're going to go, what do you mean I don't perceive the world? And I guess I was hoping in this video to say something that could get us to take a step back and sort of take off the naive realism paradigm, to realize that we exist separate from reality in some senses. That the brain can't see, right? The brain's got eyes that send it information. But it's helpful to think of the brain as being completely cut off from the world, and then trying to imagine what that outside world is like based on some rudimentary information. And doesn't feel that way. And when it doesn't feel that way, that's what's called naive realism. When it feels like I am in reality. And so you just have to try to use some metaphor to know that you are not actually in reality, and everything that you are dealing with is probably pretty shitty. If we were able to see what reality was, we'd be like, holy shit, we weren't really seeing any of it. Wow, okay. I'm wondering whether the Chinese room is useful. But you know what? To not have wasted your time, I'm going to talk about the Chinese room. So the Chinese room, John Searle, philosopher who was all like, or computer scientist, I don't know. No, I think philosopher. No, computer scientist, I think. I don't know. Who was all like, yo, computers won't have proper intelligence. Let me do a thought experiment with you to demonstrate that. And the thought experiment is imagine Steve, or no, imagine Searle. Imagine Searle is in a room. Okay. There's nothing in the room except for a chair and a desk. All right. So whatever he needs to work, and a Chinese English dictionary. It's not word to word. It's like every possible phrase. It tells you how to respond in English. So it's not even a dictionary. It doesn't even tell you what the thing says. Okay, so it's actually a conversational translational thing. It's just a response giver. So you look up some Chinese characters, some question, find that question, that page, and page 210,035. Okay, here's that question. How's the weather? I don't know what it says. It's just here's some Chinese characters. And then the response, I'm sorry, it's not English at all. I completely messed up the whole Searle thing. But honestly, all these mistakes, I'm just hoping that they show you that if I'm saying, or I just hope it proves I'm an NPC, and I think it's gonna be hard for you to actually believe that I don't have the same experience that you do, or that I'm somehow missing something that you have. So look, let this prove gosh, something missed there. Okay, let's do this again. Searle is in a room. There is a text in the room. A person outside of the room can slip a message under the door into the room. Searle can take this Chinese message. He does not speak any Chinese, understand any Chinese. He can take this Chinese message, look it up in the book, and then see the Chinese response to give, write down the Chinese response, and slip it back under the door. I'm sorry for messing that up. That was terrible. Okay. Then Searle's big question is, not the Searle in the thought experiment, but the Searle who created it, is going, so obviously, I'm going to call the guy inside the room Steve. Obviously, Steve does not understand Chinese. Therefore, an AI, doesn't have true comprehension just because it can consult some resource, it has some reference by which it can produce responses that we understand. So when we speak to a computer in English, just because it sends us things that are appropriate responses doesn't mean it actually understood what it sent. Just like Steve in the room didn't actually understand what he was sending out. But nobody outside would know the difference because all of the responses were perfectly appropriate. Here's the big problem for me, and this is why I'm taking this opportunity, because I actually made like an hour-long video about this and then uploaded it, thought it was uploaded, deleted it from my phone, and was brokenhearted, and this was months ago. So here's the big problem for me, is that the AI is not equivalent to Steve. I accept that Steve in the room using this Chinese to Chinese response question answer machine text. I concede absolutely Steve does not understand or speak Chinese. However, the AI isn't Steve. The AI is the whole room. The AI is the reference material plus Steve. And our brains are likewise these reference materials plus these sort of writing mechanisms. And by the way, a lot of times our conversations do go like that, where something is said to us, we respond. No alarms going off. We think that we understand. And then if anybody's like, hey, why did you choose those words? or what do those words mean? Oh, that's a great example. When I was interviewing in Madrid, someone kept talking about reason. There were these 18-year-old girls in art school, and they started talking about reason. And it is sort of a sentence, or the kind of sentiment they were expressing is a sentiment that is often expressed in response to the kind of sentiment that I had expressed. And when I and the other guy who had interviewed them walked away, he didn't get free, did he? Oh, okay. When I and the other guy who had interviewed them walked away, oh, I know what we can do. We'll put this as unlisted, but just put it in the description, and tell what's her name or his name to check the description. Okay. We walked away and we talked about what one of the young women had said to the other two who were talking about reason in this way that didn't really make sense. The young woman said, well, if that were the definition of reason, I didn't even say what gosh, I really fucked this video up. The definition of, they didn't give a definition of reason, but they referred to a reason as behaving in accordance with societal norms, which they themselves wouldn't actually agree with, but everything that they had been saying about reason was defining it that way. Like they said that when they were kids, they wanted to have a mountain in the house, and now know that that's weird. And no, 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 no. The other guy said that, interpreted it that way, but I don't think that's what they meant.